Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Social Web TV, the internet TV show that answers the question, who owns your data? With these two simple words, you do. And it's our holiday show.
You can feel the holiday seasons are in the air.
We used our extensive budget to decorate the studio.
Toasty warm.
Well,
This fire is nipping at my toes here.
What really keeps me warm is all the thoughts of the progress we've made this year.
Openness. Yes.
and the holiday cheer.
Yes,
That's right.
that helps too.
Yeah, so this year-end show is being filmed a day before the OpenStack meetup hosted at Dig tomorrow evening, which I think we're going to video as well, so hopefully we'll be able to share some of that for those of you who are not local, but if you are local, certainly go there.
Still time to make it, and of course we'll link it up.
Yep.
Yeah. I think one of the things we ought to do in this show is take a moment to look back on 2008 and gather up our thoughts and make some predictions for 2009. But before we do that, it is, as usual, another very busy time in the news. Lots of things happening and opening up the social web. One of them, Google Friend Connect, which is starting to show some real momentum, also added a new partner, Twitter.
It's pretty exciting to see. The idea with Google Friend Connect has always been packaging up a lot of the work that we're doing with the OpenStack and kind of delivering it in a widgetized form to the long tail so it's easy for them to drop in. And I think people really got a taste of that now when it was very easy for them to add in Twitter integration. So if you've got a Twitter profile and followers, you can bring those into any Friend Connect enabled website as your profile and friends list, and you can tweet back activity into Twitter. And so even though Twitter, isn't using OpenID and OAuth and OpenSocial per se, they've got APIs and data to do all of this stuff, and so that interoperability was actually very easy to wire up.
Well, my understanding too is Alex Payne has actually been talking about how Twitter's on the verge of offering OAuth under a beta release, which is very exciting,
Awesome.
given that Twitter was one of the original proponents or sort of creators or those who helped to create OAuth. So
Right.
it'll be nice to see that come full circle.
It's the only place in Friend Connect that still has the password added.
That's right.
But it's at least the data's portable, so people are seeing, maybe that'll help them get over that hump and say, okay, let's finally offer OAuth.
One of the reasons we started this show was that the media was not yet really covering this story, and now so much stuff is happening that, that everyone has to cover the story, but it's also complex enough that almost every article gets at least some of it wrong. So the Twitter one in Google Friend Connect was viewed as, they're abandoning some other thing. Maybe they're not going to do Facebook Connect or MySpace data availability, which is really now MySpace ID. And the answer is more nuanced than that. In fact, Twitter, like other sites that really want to grow fast, is going to look at all the different things that are out there and figure out how to take advantage of them to grow their business.
Yeah, I mean, the story for Twitter is the same as the story for all the sites implementing Friend Connect. They've got no particular loyalty to one site or one technology over another. They just want all of their users to be able to share that information around in all of the sites they use. And I think that's ultimately a very good thing for those of us working on a common set of open standards, because if you want to interact with a bunch of different sites, you're going to want them to have the same code so you don't have to keep writing things over and over again. So that pain will be felt. It should help move things along.
And that's kind of a nice segue to one of the other things in the news. Last week, sort of lost amidst the simultaneous launches of Facebook Connect and Google Friend Connect, was an equally cool rollout of Jan Rain's RPX for 200 artist sites under Universal Music's Interscope Geffen A&M label. I think I got all that right.
I can finally log into SnoopDogg.com with my OpenID. This is a great day indeed.
It's actually really cool. You should all check it out, because we see here OpenStack kind of stuff implemented with a Lightbox with a nice user experience where you get to choose from a variety of different ways to log into this site without having to generate a new username password pair. The options include a number of prominent OpenIDs, Google, Yahoo, AOL, MySpace, I think today just OAuth. But I was surprised because Jan Rain has long been a big player in the OpenID space. I was really surprised there was a Facebook option in the screen as well, which apparently is using the Facebook platform APIs, not Facebook Connect, given when they developed it. But wow.
Takes all kinds.
Yeah, and so I think I've got a blog post that should go live today on this, but I think Jan Rain is in a really interesting position, because when you think about if you're a Universal Music site or some other mainstream site, keeping up with Yahoo Ads SReg and Google Ads Attribute Exchange.
Yeah.
I mean, this space is going to be moving really fast and doing a great implementation, whether it's OpenStack or Facebook Connect, is just outside of the core competency of most sites. And so being able to outsource it on a software as a service model, if I were an investor, I'd be putting money in January.
Well, and I think it's great to, again, show people that sort of mainstream adoption. So I think it feels really natural to go up to one of these band sites and sign in with your Yahoo or Google account, start to interact. Like I didn't want a Weezer account in the first place. I just wanted to interact with people there, right? And so,
Really? You don't want a Weezer account?
Well, okay, that's maybe an exception, but it just feels very natural, and you don't have to know what's going on under the hood. And I'm sure most of the users of those sites don't. And so that just gives me a lot of confidence that we're making a lot of progress in that, making it mainstream, getting the usability right, ironing out the kinks and implementations between the different sites, and offering it to a large number of people who, like you say, wouldn't necessarily be able to keep up with all the latest and greatest on their own Steam.
It also puts Generate in this interesting position of being able to get data about the usage or adoption trends and see how they vary site to site, and then give the sites options to say, hey, for our demographic, we want MySpace to be more prominent and Plaxo to be less prominent, or vice versa. I've seen some of the early data. What's really interesting is no one of the options for one of the sites that I got to see data for, no one of the brands captured a majority. And given all the choices, if you add up all the ones that were OpenID, that captured over 60%.
Really?
So still early data, but
that's exciting. I think one of the really interesting things about Universal adopting OpenID and this technology is a recognition and a validation, I think, overall of the things that we've been talking about. So in so much as this allows bands or fans rather, to connect with bands and artists more directly, that to me sort of is a signifier that other people in both the music industry, the media industry, but also in business generally, will start to understand, you mean, first of all, I don't have to re-implement these technologies over and over again. Secondly, I can take off the burden on my members, on the people who are actually going to be coming to this site, and I can develop a longer term distributed sort of relationship because I'm actually interacting with people between different sites. And I think that becomes interesting. At least it's an option that previously didn't exist without these technologies.
Well, and we talk a lot about user-centric identity and putting the user in control, but the band or the company or whoever wants to have a relationship with those users, they also want to be in control. And so a lot of them today might have a Facebook group or something like that, and then there are companies like Ning that say, well, you should have your own social network that's hosted by us, that's more personal and more customized. But really the extreme is to do like what we do, where you have your own website with your own data and your own experience. You can really be in control of it. You have access to the data, and these technologies that have been freeing users should also be freeing the people and organizations that want to have a relationship with those users. So it's kind of neat how it's working in both ways.
Cool. So that more mainstreaming as well. In the news this week, some changes at the management level at LinkedIn, which kind of isn't on our beat, so I won't go into the details there. But in some of the coverage of it, what I found most interesting was kind of a reference that LinkedIn wants to make some more significant strategic changes, and in fact roll with this wave that we've been talking about on this show. So dropping hints that LinkedIn might become an online identity provider sometime in the near future, leveraging, among other things, very richly populated profiles. Our hope is if they do that, they also take the social graph that is vibrant within LinkedIn and make that something which a user can take with them across the web, hopefully via portable contacts and securely via OAuth.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to compete with Facebook here, because the reality is that people are using, I think, Facebook to do a lot more sort of business networking, to put up information about the things that they're working on and so on, and to make those connections. And so for LinkedIn to stay, I think, relevant and to embrace sort of the size of the open web, I think it's a great move for them to sort of hopefully become sort of an identity provider for your professional identity. And this also speaks to the points that we've made around possibly having more than one OpenID, for example, to identify yourself. So you might use your Facebook account for certain sites, but then you'll use your LinkedIn identity for another site, or for other purposes.
It does seem like a great opportunity for LinkedIn, who really does have both at kind of a brand level and at a data level a lot of mind share in terms of that being your sort of professional shingle out on the web and your real sort of set of business connections. And I thought that was really interesting that Reid Hoffman in that piece mentioned that the LinkedIn public profile for a lot of professionals is the place they'd most want to be found on the web. And in a world in which we've recently been talking about
In a world.
right, new preview for a very boring movie. But in a world in which there's been a lot of debates lately about can users really understand having URLs be their identifiers, or do we need to use something like email addresses that's easier? And you had MySpace saying, well, a lot of our users really do think of their MySpace page as their URL. LinkedIn is the same way. If you think about your shingle on the web, it really is that LinkedIn URL. And so it's nice to see another example of a very mainstream group of users that thinks of that URL-based identity as the natural way of doing things.
But you probably wouldn't use your LinkedIn identity to log into Weezer.
Yeah, it's kind of like wearing a suit to the concert, unless it's kind of like ironic. It doesn't really work.
Yeah.
You could probably pull that off. But.
Wow.
All right, last thing in the news before we get on.
That would be ironic.
Yeah.
OpenID Foundation is having its first ever election of community board members, and some of the folks you know and love from this show are among the slate of 17 candidates. Joseph, Chris, and David are all among them.
Mm-hmm.
It should be pretty competitive. There's all 7 seats are up for election, and there's 17 very qualified people running.
It's actually, I voted the other day. It was really difficult. There were way more than 7 people I wanted to vote for. Voting is open through December 24th, so Christmas Eve.
You have to
That's
join
not Christmasina, that's Christmas Eve. Boom.
Yeah, how long have you been waiting to throw that one in?
Thanks.
Only on the Christmas show.
You do have to register and join the foundation. It's $25 to join, and then you can vote for everyone. But what better way to support the open web than...
And really help to direct the future of it,
Yeah.
really, in terms of picking the folks who are hopefully going to represent the community going forward.
Right. As we see with the OpenStack, OpenID is in many ways sort of the keystone,
The cornerstone.
on which everything else rides. So.
And there's also one other thing, movable type 6 apart came out with Motion as well. Which is
a very emotional moment. That's even worse. Okay,
all right.
Race to the bottom.
Yeah. which, by the way, is a very interesting use of sort of activity stream ideas.
Yep.
Sort of a reuse of Pounce and Tumblr and things like that. So it's very exciting, actually. One of the catchphrases that they use, which I think is great, is that the internet is the largest social network.
Nice.
That's very good.
Well, I've always liked what 6 Apart, their spin on these things, because movable type is it's not a social network that everybody's on. It's a piece of software you run yourself.
Yeah.
But all of the blogs out there collectively are one of the biggest social networks, if you will. And as a result, it forces them to do things in a very distributed way.
Yeah.
And so this sort of proof point of if the standards really are open, whether it's my own personal blog or my profile on LinkedIn or wherever, it all works the same way. That's something I think that's really kind of made the point and also forced us to stay honest. So. Yeah.
Okay, so let's switch gears,
Yes.
do 2008 in review, and I don't think we want to belabor any of the points because we covered most of the stuff on previous shows.
Rapid fire countdown Casey Kasem style.
Well, no, even more random than that. Just
Okay.
anyone throw out anything that happened in the year that they think was significant. I'll start. Portable Contacts Initiative was not even begun before 2008. It was not conceived of until sometime this year.
And as you'll hear about at the meetup, a lot of progress with that. Google Friend Connect came out of nowhere, right? Open Social itself, basically,
Well,
late,
Open Social is 2007.
No, but November.
Right.
This year is when we saw the adoption across most of the largest social networks around.
Scoblegate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole year started with this whole rally cry for data portability, and in a way, we've been spending the year making that real, right?
Yeah, well, it's also sort of interesting to think that OAuth was finalized. OAuth 1.0 was finalized in December, early December of last year.
OpenID 2.0, same
And so,
thing.
same time period at IAW last year. And so we've essentially, over the last year, seen the rise, I think, and the validation of OAuth as a baseline technology that people now are taking very seriously.
Yeah.
And we've done, I think, a pretty good job of socializing the problems with the password anti-pattern and helping people understand that these accounts that you have on the web and the passwords that you use to protect them are becoming more and more valuable. And so you want to actually have a good technology in place that many different technology providers and implementers understand to essentially increase the level of security and also your ability to control your ability to move the data around.
And there's so much good data out there that's not public. So
There
I
is
love
now, that's right.
things like Netflix using OAuth for their APIs. I
That's
think
right.
so many more like that will come. I'd love to be
in
able to
fact,
get
I saw
OAuth for
that-
my travel itinerary for my...
I saw that experience for the first time, getting the Netflix streaming experience.
Oh, yeah.
Where you actually go through and you basically get a little token on your computer and you type it into your Netflix box.
The
And it
desktop
works.
experience.
And it was amazing.
Yeah.
And so if anybody's used either the Samsung Blu-ray player or their Xbox and they have Netflix on it, try that out. That's actually OAuth, and
Sweet.
you wouldn't even know it. It's amazing. It's great.
So that makes me think of OAuth really, along with OpenID, paving the road for other things,
Yeah.
portable contacts following a similar path. and then leading to the creation of the Open Web Foundation in 2008, so that more grassroots projects for open spec initiatives can leverage a common set of practices and non-asserts and things like that.
Yeah. Well, even OpenID, I mean, OpenID has been around for a while, but this year, Yahoo goes live, Google goes live, Microsoft goes live. I mean, just incredible mainstream adoption. And you start to see, more and more mainstream sites moving towards being relying parties or even exclusively OpenID relying parties. And I think that will jumping ahead of the predictions a little bit, I think that's a trend you're really going to see going in 2009.
Yeah, I agree.
I also think this year, amazing to see the spread of the open concept well beyond the boundaries of the conventional social network. So you see Yahoo reinventing itself with YOS.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Microsoft comes into play not only as an OpenID provider, but saying, hey, we're reinventing ourselves as a new kind of social network, following this kind of blueprint that I think Plaxo is really kind of the first out there, but this notion that you want to have not just a news feed of activity on your site, but you want to have a web-wide aggregation of the live streams of the people you're connected to, and you want to have your hub be richly interconnected with all of the web, not just a walled garden.
And as part of that, they had to open up, two-way APIs to almost all of the Microsoft Live services, and it's all this, RESTy AtomPub kind of interface, spitting out JSON. I mean, very kind of web-friendly, right?
Sure,
it's not some, big proprietary stack. So that's very cool to see.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure we could keep coming up with more, but one last one is certainly the introduction of the social web TV.
That's right.
That's huge.
It's hard to believe that it's been less than a year.
Yeah. It's only been, like 6 months? June?
Yeah.
All right. With only a few minutes to go, let's look forward to 2009. 2008 supposed to be the year of data portability. I had made a prediction in December of last year. I put it on the record on my blog, saying that by the end of 2008, we would see the emergence of the social web. We would see the beginnings of this new thing and the walled garden model being left behind. I declared victory on that, I think, a week ago. I don't have anything nearly as bold for 2009, but I do have some questions, so anyone can throw out. So 2009, what are we going to see out of Facebook?
Wow. I had hoped to have seen Facebook become an OpenID provider by the end of 2008. I think that, I don't know if I'd say I've been disappointed, but I think that in the very least that Facebook is not a member, let's say, of the OpenStack club yet. It forces us to double down on, I think, the user experience, because Facebook at least has done a very good job of sort of pushing that out. Now, they've done it by removing user choice. And of course, that reduces complexity greatly. So our challenge, and sort of the way that I've been framing this, is that Facebook becomes our sort of Internet Explorer to our Firefox. We have now a rallying cry that I think will motivate us to really think about this from a much wider consumer perspective. Therefore, I think what we'll see is that Facebook will help lead the way and then come into our fold as we sort of move towards theirs, and there'll be a nice sort of meeting in the middle where everybody benefits.
Well, one ray of sunshine there.
Positive, Chris.
Yeah. Well, Luke Shepard, who's one of the main engineers at Facebook on Connect, has also been one of the most involved in the OpenStack community and sort of an internal champion. And he's running for the OpenID Board Foundation. So he's certainly got my endorsement, because I think when we get these companies to really sit down and talk, it reminds me of Yahoo coming to the OpenID group back in the day and saying, if you could just do this and that and the other, I think we could have something. And that really ended up making it work for both of us. So I'm optimistic about that.
I'm willing to predict, go on the record, I predict Facebook will be on some part of the OpenStack before 2009 is over. OpenID looks like clearly maybe the first move in that direction.
OAuth might even be easier. I mean, Facebook Auth is almost exactly the same as OAuth.
Let's see.
I'll make
portable contacts.
Oh, okay.
I predict portable contacts will be available from the 3 top webmail providers over the course of 2009.
Which may finally put an end to scraping being the norm. I think that would be a nice, bold prediction for 2009, is that scraping will no longer be necessary or desirable because of the confluence of APIs and standards that mean it's actually easier to do it the right way.
But for that to be true, Microsoft would have to become an OAuth provider, and I am predicting that for 2009.
Oh yeah, wow.
And actually, I think there's the potential for that to be a great story too, because their proprietary version, Microsoft Live ID Delegated Authentication, has actually got some extra security bells and whistles that's not in OAuth, and there's always this trade-off of complexity versus ease of adoption, but I think hopefully there's room for good synergy there, making OAuth a little bit better and getting them to be able to support the standards.
I also, sort of on that point in related ways, OAuth right now is sort of going through the IETF, which is one of the web standards bodies. And it's a very interesting process to see so far, given the way that we developed OAuth. So sort of, I guess a prediction that I'd like to see is that the Open Web Foundation itself will sort of come into its own. We'll start offering guidelines and sort of a legal framework which will help people sort of understand and make agreements between these different websites. One of the things that's very different in the open social web is that now you're dealing with parties who are essentially advocating on behalf of users. They're becoming sort of the user agents of the web. And one of the things that's very abstract and unknown right now are the legal protections that need to be afforded to people who are using the systems. So if the Open Web Foundation can become one vehicle for, sort of at least ushering that conversation forward, both on the standards and the technologies and protocols, but also in terms of the consumer stuff, I think that's going to be very interesting to see and very important.
Yep. You got to feel comfortable using it.
Yeah.
All right, we've almost run out of time.
One more prediction, which is I think that it will become increasingly common, if not the de facto standard, for new startups to be OpenID relying party exclusively, and to realize that you can get enough value and there's enough mainstream providers out there that making your own account system is just not necessary.
It's just like using S3.
Exactly.
For your storage, you're going to use OpenID.
One less thing to worry
identity.
about.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
All right, I've got one other one.
Oh, okay.
Microsoft will become an open social container.
Oh, you heard it here first.
All right.
Yeah.
So at least it's all on the record. We'll find out whether we're right.
Yeah.
But to find that out, you have to come back each week. So join us next week. Oh, wait a minute. We're going to be on holiday.
Yeah.
We'll let you know.
Yeah.
Early in the new year.
Next time.
Yes, next time. Join us next time for another exciting episode of The Social Web TV.